I'm pretty sure of this. When they created this award, Denzel Hayes Washington Jr.
You know, he doesn't raise his voice. He doesn't trade in gossip. Morgan Freeman draws a line of silence, a boundary you can't cross. Once you do, there's no way back. I told him this. We clash swords 3 times. I strike, you fall, and you're gone. For over half a century, Morgan Freeman has embodied elegance, composure, and patience on screen. He has played presidents, prisoners, even gods, and brought grace into every role. But don't mistake grace for endless tolerance. He has walked away from sets. He has demanded recasting. And though he rarely names names, his silence says it all. You won't find viral outbursts or explosive interviews. What you'll find is absence, a sudden, deliberate vanishing act. From Driving Miss Daisy to Seven. From Shawshank Redemption to $1 Million Baby. Morgan Freeman's career reads like a hall of fame. But behind the curtain, some faces vanished. Quietly. Permanently shared the stage with giants. Clint Eastwood, Brad Pitt, Jessica Tandy. Yet not everyone made it back into his orbit. Today, we're counting down 7 actors Morgan Freeman quietly removed from his world. Stick around because the number 6 actor on this list shocked even us. Number 1. Jim Carrey. The set of Bruce Almighty was supposed to be electric. Morgan Freeman, calm and commanding as God. Jim Carrey, chaotic brilliance wrapped inside Bruce. On screen, he and Freeman looked like perfect opposites, balancing each other with ease. The chemistry seemed natural. But once the cameras stopped, the mood shifted fast. Carrey's process was extreme, improvisational, unpredictable, explosive. For Freeman, trained through theater, built on discipline, focus, and control, that wasn't energy. That was static. Loud static. A crew member once recalled Freeman muttering, "I don't know if he's acting, or just turning everything into his own stage." It wasn't shade. It was observation. Freeman isn't known for cheap shots. He's known for restraint. But even restraint has limits. The problem wasn't just the noise. It was the rhythm. Freeman prepared like a stage actor. Measured, precise. Carrey was a storm. He rewrote lines, shifted pacing, threw in wild gestures that sometimes fractured the intent of a scene. One source said Freeman would often pause, sigh, and wait for the storm to pass before grounding the room again with his quiet intensity. The real fracture came during promotion. Carrey treated the press tour like stand-up, leaning into the absurdity of the premise. Freeman believed the film carried something deeper, about power, humility, and humanity, and he was frustrated watching it reduced to a punchline. At one junket, when asked about Carrey's antics, Freeman simply said, "He's talented." But talent doesn't always mean he listens. There was no sequel, no reunion, no fond recollections in later interviews. Just one strange collaboration and a door quietly shut. Carrey once admitted, "Morgan brings a gravity that I try not to disrupt, but in Freeman's world, trying not to isn't always enough." And once respect starts slipping, even behind a smile, Freeman lets silence speak. Number 2. Matt Damon. Morgan Freeman and Matt Damon once shared the screen in Invictus, a film that seemed like a natural pairing. Freeman embodying Nelson Mandela's quiet resilience. Damon as the Springboks captain. On paper, flawless. In reality, far from it. Only weeks into filming, the air began to shift. Damon, fresh off blockbuster success and glowing reviews, carried a confidence that often blurred into arrogance. Off-set, he was said to have called Freeman nice, but old Hollywood. A casual remark to some, but for Freeman, a man who values legacy above labels, it cut deep. Tension brewed beneath the surface. Freeman later joked in an interview, and it wasn't entirely a joke, that "I've had to grow my own beard after having to wait for that young man's ego to catch up," laughed, but it wasn't warm. If Damon thought it was harmless banter, he misjudged the weight behind the words. Crew members recalled Damon walking ahead of Freeman on purpose, seeking advice from junior staff, and brushing off Freeman's suggestions. For Freeman, who built his career on depth, collaboration, and respect, this wasn't just a clash of styles. It was a broken code. To Damon's credit, he never fired back publicly. He praised Freeman, calling him a legend. But the damage stayed. When filming wrapped, there was no bond, no shared interviews, just a polite handshake and a fade to black. In Freeman's world, talent alone means nothing. You need humility. You need respect. And when Damon crossed that line, Freeman didn't rage. He simply closed the door. Number 3. Lindsay Lohan. This one never happened on set. It didn't need to. Freeman's clash with Lindsay Lohan came from a moment. A sharp, unexpected jab in front of a live audience. It was 2007. At an industry event, Freeman drifted off script and into something personal. Reflecting on Hollywood's shifting standards, he dropped a line that froze the room. "We've gone from Marlon Brando to Lindsay Lohan, and I'm not sure that's progress." The audience laughed. But Freeman wasn't joking. He was drawing a line. To him, Lohan symbolized a generation that blurred the line between craft and celebrity, where tabloid drama outweighed discipline, fame replaced form. For Freeman, an actor who built his legacy on gravity and restraint, that wasn't just annoying. It was insulting. Lohan never fired back publicly. But according to insiders, the remark stung. She reportedly asked not to be seated near Freeman at a charity gala later that year. And leaked call sheets from a scrapped ensemble project in 2009 suggested Freeman refused to join any film involving non-serious talent. Many believed it was a direct reference to her. Many believed it was a thinly veiled reference to her, and that's how Freeman operates. No explosive rants, no public spats, just a single sentence calmly delivered that shifts the entire room and effectively ends the conversation. In Lohan's case, it was a public dismissal wrapped in a punchline. And once Freeman puts you in that category, there's no climbing back out. Number 4. Spike Lee. When two titans speak, Hollywood listens. But when those voices clash, the silence afterwards says even more. For years, Spike Lee and Morgan Freeman stood on opposite ends of a widening divide in Black Hollywood. Not because of betrayal. Not because of set drama. But because of ideology. The tension ignited in the early 2000s when Spike Lee openly criticized black actors who, in his words, pretend race doesn't exist, didn't name names, but the message was clear. He was calling out stars who took roles that could have gone to anyone. A thinly veiled shot at Freeman, whose career often avoided racially charged narratives in favor of universal characters. Freeman's response, classic Freeman, calm, icy, but pointed. In a 2005 interview, he said, "I don't want a Black History Month. I don't want a label. I want to be treated like everyone else." It wasn't just a soundbite. It was a philosophy. It wasn't just a soundbite. It was a philosophy. And to Lee, it sounded like denial. Behind closed doors, industry insiders spoke of mutual disdain. To Lee, though, it sounded like denial. Behind closed doors, insiders whispered about mutual disdain. Freeman reportedly turned down multiple Spike Lee projects without explanation. Lee fired back by branding certain actors comfortable in the system, suggesting they were out of touch with the cultural moment. No open confrontation. No screaming feud. But the chill was undeniable. Award shows. Opposite sides of the room. Round tables. Never together. Collaborations. Not once. In an industry where silence can be a surgical strike, Morgan Freeman's distance from Spike Lee became a statement all its own. Number 5. Kevin Spacey. Freeman and Kevin Spacey were once considered peers, two commanding presences, both masters of quiet intensity. They moved in the same circles, attended the same galas, even championed similar causes. Their rapport seemed unshakable. Until 2017. When the allegations against Spacey broke, Hollywood froze. But Freeman didn't. He didn't tweet. He didn't post. He vanished. Joint projects went dark. Future appearances alongside Spacey were scrubbed. And most tellingly, a London stage production they were rumored to co-produce was quietly cancelled. When asked if it was still happening, Freeman's rep gave a single-line reply, "We've moved in a different direction." That's Freeman's version of slamming a door. According to a former executive at the production company, Freeman was deeply disturbed by the accusations, not just because of their nature, but because of how well he thought he knew Spacey. According to a former exec, Freeman was deeply unsettled, not just by the nature of the accusations, but because of how well he thought he knew Spacey. The betrayal wasn't only professional. It was personal. In an off-camera moment during award season, Freeman reportedly shook his head and said, "Some things you don't come back from. Not with me." There was no explosive fallout, no dramatic showdown, just an immediate total severance. For Freeman, trust is earned slowly but lost all at once. And once it's gone, so is any chance of redemption. Number 6. Zach Braff. On paper, Going in Style looked like a light-hearted win. A feel-good heist comedy starring Hollywood legends Michael Caine, Alan Arkin, and Morgan Freeman. Directed by Zach Braff, known for his quirky indie charm. But once the cameras stopped rolling, the vibe was far from smooth. And Freeman wasn't hiding it. Crew members described a strange tension between Braff and Freeman. The problem? Style. Braff thrived on improvisation, fast-paced direction, encouraging spontaneity and loose structure. That works for younger actors maybe, but Freeman? He's old school. Precise, economical, disciplined. He values preparation, rhythm, and economy. One source said Freeman visibly bristled when Braff suggested a third take with a totally different energy. Morgan doesn't need 12 versions. The source explained, he nails it in 2. During press for the film, the discomfort became harder to miss. In interviews, Freeman often gave short clipped answers when Braff spoke. One source said Freeman visibly bristled when Braff pushed for a third take, with totally different energy. For Morgan, that was unnecessary. He locks it in within 2, the insider explained. By the time press rolled around, the discomfort was impossible to ignore. In interviews, Freeman often gave short, clipped answers whenever Braff spoke. At one point, Braff praised the playful, free atmosphere on set. Freeman's expression? Pure stone. Later, when asked why he signed on to the project, his response was flat, the check cleared. The room laughed. Freeman didn't. One junket even went viral. Braff launched into a long-winded explanation of a scene, only for Freeman to mutter under his breath, "Or we could just act." Add an eye roll, a deadpan stare, and you had Reddit buzzing for days. To be clear, there was no meltdown. Freeman showed up, did the work, and promoted the film. But respect. That was never there. For a man who built his career on precision and presence, Braff's chaotic approach didn't just clash, it grated. Number 7. Michael Douglas. Some conflicts don't erupt into arguments. They simply exist, quietly, in the spaces between takes. Morgan Freeman and Michael Douglas only worked together once, in Las Vegas, 2013, a comedy built around a star-studded cast. They weren't enemies, but they weren't friends either. And when they finally shared a set, the tension wasn't loud, it was quiet. Douglas came from a school of discipline, thorough preparation, detailed analysis, precise control over pacing. Freeman was the opposite, natural, instinctive, stripped-down rehearsal. 2 men, 2 methods, rarely overlapping. Freeman doesn't slam doors. He simply doesn't reopen them. In an industry that thrives on reinvention, he built his legacy on steadiness, calm, and principle. Cross his line, and you won't hear an outburst. You'll just see him step away, disappearing from your orbit. That's not pettiness. It's precision. For Freeman, respect isn't loud. It's silent. And once that silence begins, it rarely ends. Some names remain inside his circle forever. Clint Eastwood, Tim Robbins, Jessica Tandy. But the 7 on this list, they didn't just lose a co-star. They lost a gatekeeper.